It is I, your friendly local neighborhood Andrew Man, here in Los Angeles, California. And for all of you special patrons out there who are near and dear to our hearts, we thought that this month we'd give you a sneak peek of one of the songs and kind of highlight the differences in production and recording that have gone into the making of this new record to be released hopefully later this year, and compare it a bit to some of the stuff we've done in the past, which all the recordings we've done have been one at a time, single track, multi-tracked from everyone's individual home in whatever country. Hard to keep track anymore. And just kind of highlight the differences. And, well, I'll go to the punchline now. The differences is that it's so much better and so much more awesome. And just the reason for that is that our sound, the sound that we've kind of, our signature sonic imprint, if you will, as a group, is basically really focusing so much on blend and tuning and just musicality and phrasing and stuff like that. And of course, all groups have these things, but for us, they're just so critical to this just coming off with a good sound. We have soloists and leads and stuff like that, but really with all this dense harmony, it really has to be, and all these arrangements, these other elements are just kind of the things that really sell it. And by recording all together, we're really able to tackle those things on just live at the same time, and we're able to address them and really react to them as we're singing with each other and work on things and suggest changes and stuff like that. And you don't have to wait and see like, oh, I hope it turns out well in the final project. Is like, no, do we sound good now? What's not sounding good? Or just an experiment in ways that we never were able to before. So hands down, that has made it just so much more fun. And I'll be honest, this recording method of doing it live, it's not easy. I mean, I've done it with other groups before, and nowhere near as challenging as the Materials accent, and it's very tough because we set the bar pretty high for ourselves to try and do as much of it all together as possible. So, also with material that we don't really have, well, we haven't ever sung before the recording. So with new material, singing together for the first time, recording ourselves, just different. There's so many new things here, but it came out better than we could have hoped, and I'm very excited to share this with you. So we're going to start by taking a look at one of the songs. It's written by JB. Its working title now is called Interlude, and it's about a 2-minute wordless song, and it's just beautiful. It's a great kind of ballad, jazz ballad. You could almost hear it kind of translated to instruments pretty nicely, and I'll just play a little bit of that for you right now. All right. Well, I hope you all thought that sounded awesome, because I definitely do. And, well, let's talk about it. Right now, I think that sounds great, and there's absolutely nothing going on mix-wise. All of these, it looks like I have a lot of stuff, but all these are blue, which means that they're bypassed. So all these plugins and processing that I have, lined up, actually, they're all turned off right now. So that renders this stuff inactive as well. So it's basically just a little bit of panning, and not aggressive panning either, and it's just some volume automation, just some level balancing, and that's it. It's single tracked, so it means that there's no doubles or anything like that. And as you can see, as I kind of try and lay it out with colors, but these top 5 parts, so James, Danny, Simon, JB, and Andrew, myself, and a room mic, they're all recorded at the same time. And I'll talk a bit more later about the reasoning behind that. But basically, we have all of us standing in a full circle, like a couple feet away from each other, so we're close, and there's no isolation between us. There's no baffles, there's no barriers or anything. And so we're singing right there. We don't have headphones on when we're recording this particular song. It's the other ones we did, but not this one. And we also have a set of room mics. I put a stereo pair of small diaphragm condensers at the other side of the room to kind of capture what it sounds like in the room. So I'll play a little bit of just the room mic, and just a heads up, it's Evan's not in the room. He's recording his parts later, but turn that up. I just think that's so cool that now we have that element to play with that we never had before. Now we actually have captured the propagation of all the waves of everyone's individual voice and how they're playing with each other in the room. And we have that I just think that's fantastic because it adds a level of like depth and space that we've never had before without even having to go to actual reverb or anything yet. That's the real room sound, and you kind of mix that in with the top 5. So I'll play the top 5 without the room and with. Anyways, you can hopefully kind of hear it's subtle, because I'm not trying to make it too loud because you don't want it to sound too roomy, but you still have the intimacy of the close mics, which is great because it captures what's called timbral detail, which is like all the high frequencies and stuff like that. So if you've done recording, when you're close to the mic, you get all the sounds. Sometimes you even get like proximity effect, and sometimes and the farther away you go, you kind of lose detail. Not only do you lose level, but you also lose a bit of high frequency detail. And so the room doesn't quite have that high end crispiness to it, but it basically has the kind of swelling of all the voices together, and has the space, which basically adds a 3-dimensional background to the other voices, the other microphones. So it's just better sounding, which I think is fantastic. And let's kind of hear what one of these mics on its own sounds like. So let's listen to JB and kind of see, like, there's no isolation. Like, how bad's the bleed? And check that out. So you can hear the other voices. And actually, the management's pretty good. There's not that much bleed. It is there. And, when you start recording and stuff like that, if you've done any engineering, you kind of learn that, okay, well, let's not have any bleed. Let's keep the bleed out. And it's bad, so let's, avoid it at all costs. But the more that I learned about it, it's actually, bleed is fantastic. It's one of the things that actually can kind of add cohesiveness to the sound, as opposed to having everyone just be like completely isolated. And that as long as you're able to control, there's good bleed and bad bleed. And I found that we were able to capture all of our performances really well, and there is a lot of separation despite not actually being isolated. So there is flexibility in regards to mixing and treating an individual voice, but altogether, kind of just the bit of the swell, a bit of the bleed, it actually kind of adds even more, more sonic cohesion in a way. It's subtle, but it's really cool. So that's kind of awesome that's the way that it turned out. So as you can see here, there's really not much crazy going on, just this very narrow panning. I don't have James like way off to one side or something like that. And in other tracks, I might do that. I'll make use of all the stereo space, but because of the way we recorded, the fact that we're so close together and it's only single tracked, and we really want a very, as I said before, cohesive is like the word of the day here, is I kind of want to keep everything a bit more tucked in, a bit closer, so it helps kind of help the voices blend with each other because no one's sticking out in a weird way. And also stylistically, it's appropriate for the music because it's single tracked and we want it to sound very real and organic for this song, that if you were in the room listening to us, it would sound, we'd want to kind of recreate how that might sound in a way, to a point. We don't want it to sound like just like a mic in a room, but so that was kind of the point for that, and that the reverb and the room sounds and stuff like that, that's what really spreads and stretches the sides and also the back of the stereo image. So that's kind of where we play with the space, which is pretty cool. So let's kind of take a look. Let's listen to Evan a little bit here. So he's got wow, he sounds great. Like he's such a great singer, and he has the perfect sound for accent, but he also, it just sounds great on the mic that we chose for him, which was a very expensive microphone that a good friend of mine, Tony Shepard, lent us. And yeah, it's just great to have the audio sound so good right off the bat. So that's really cool. Let's kind of browse around here. What else is there? I can kind of show you. So again, not much happening. And the reason Evan is tracked separately, there's actually two main reasons that I kind of came up with. And as I kind of headed the whole production effort, this is kind of my fault. It's just that Evan, his parts are so usually a bit different. They're a bit separate from the rest of us, whereas the top 5 of us might be singing backgrounds or 2D style arrangements where we're all singing like the same words with the same rhythm, that kind of thing. And Evan sometimes does that, but he also kind of anchors us. He's very much the bass in regards to as like a foundation, and to have him be captured in such a way where I have the most flexibility with his parts, where I can add, I don't have to worry about bleed of other voices or anything in there. Like, I have his part just completely untouched so that I can really mold it to kind of be what it needs to be for each individual song. And he's so good at singing this stuff. He records. He's so used to recording himself. So although it would be great to record a lot of this stuff with Evan, this is just the way it had to work out. And the second reason was that as we were recording, we needed someone to run Pro Tools, to run the computer, which was, again, in the same room, not too far away. But we needed someone to basically be listening and to like pick up on stuff that maybe us, because we're singing, we might not notice, or maybe someone like tap their foot and you could hear it, but we were so much in the moment that we didn't realize. And he could be like, oh, that's great, but you got a foot tap in there and we don't want that on the final. And so he's basically organizing that. And as you can see, just of the way we recorded this, it's like all these different kind of cuts and stuff like that. I'll go into more about what these cuts mean, because we recorded it in sections. We needed someone as we were recording to like take notes and basically be like, all right, bar 5 from here was really good, or you need to redo bar 16. And as you can see, this is a 2-minute song. This is my edit here, the final edit. This is about 60 minutes of just raw audio. Just like, we just left it rolling. So it kind of sounds like, yeah, let's see.
Nothing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's, yeah.
So some burps, that's nice. Very good.
Guys, we have... Is it recording?
Yeah, you can see even like 15 minutes later, we're still on that same part, but you can see Evan's done notes here with the markers. So best jet, possible, definite, stuff like that. So thanks to him, we were able to be very organized. So by the time we had finished recording, we actually had all the parts that we wanted, and I was able to put this edit together right away, which meant that Evan could start recording whenever he was ready, which was really cool. And yeah, so this edit, it looks like we've done it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections. So I'm going by the room mics here. So it looks like I have a lot more edits than that, but I actually really don't. The one for, say, JB, his part right here, the reason I cut this clip out was actually just so I could change the volume of it, because I thought, oh, it's great, but this clip is a bit too loud. And this is one way to change volume. And so I did that. And say, for example, this part right here, if we zoom in, we can kind of see that like everyone's supposed to come in at the same time, but looks like I'm a bit ahead, not much, but just a bit. I was actually like closer to over here. Like I had a bit of an early entrance, so I actually just nudged it back just enough so you wouldn't be able to hear it. So like this. Otherwise, it would maybe be like this. I don't think it was that bad, but exaggeration for the sake of example. So yeah, so that's kind of what we got here, and yeah, I think we did this. Yeah, we did this all in one sitting. I think obviously it took about 60 minutes. Actually, it's probably closer to 2.5 hours because we took breaks and stuff like that. Yeah, so let's go and see. So we have all this great stuff, and the reason it already sounds like nice, like it's not perfect or anything, but it sounds nice already, it's just because I've already done balancing, everyone's parts. I've actually done something called volume automation, which is where I've automated when the volumes go up and down for individual parts. As you can kind of see, Simon, maybe when he sings quietly because he's the top voice in this song, we need to make sure he doesn't get too quiet because he's kind of carrying everybody else, that kind of thing. So yeah, so I've already done that, which is actually kind of the biggest part about mixing, because mixing is really, at the end of it, you have all your tricks and tools and stuff like that, but it's just really about balance. So if there's one thing you learn today, it's cohesion and balance. These are my two buzzwords of this little video message here. Great. So we listened to that. Now let's take a look and kind of see what it sounds like with some of these effects. Like what do I do after I've got everything sounding pretty good and balanced? Well, this first row is just some virtual console emulation, and I won't nerd out too much about that, but we recorded this stuff really well with great microphones and great preamps, but something about recording through something like a console, like an SSL or a Neve or a Trident or API, is that it just has a bit of a sound to it because the audio is passing in the analog domain through a whole bunch of like circuits and transformers and stuff, and that colors the sound. And because digital has gotten so good, we're able to kind of emulate some of these characteristics of classic pieces of gear and have them so we can use them in our computers. So that's basically what this is, this harmonic saturation. The difference is so subtle I won't even bother playing it, but it is there. And then the next row for each person is generally EQ. So for myself, that's pretty much the only other thing I have on is just an EQ. And EQ is short for equalization, which basically means control of frequencies within the hearing spectrum for humans, which is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz. And if I want to make my sound a bit brighter or a bit darker, just individually, I would use an EQ to do that. So I kind of massage some people's voices a bit, but honestly, maybe it looks more drastic than it is, but it really is. This is not even a dB boost, and you can't even hear anything usually less than 3 dB anyway. So I don't even know why I'm doing this, but very small moves, which is pretty cool. All right, so I've got EQ on everybody, and I put some on the rooms as well. I thought the rooms were sounding they sounded good, but I thought they were actually sounding a bit too thin. I want to add a bit of body, a bit of beef. So I'll show you before and after kind of what I did here. So let's just go from that's before, after. Again, super subtle. I have I have headphones on right now, so it's pretty obvious to me, but it's okay if you don't hear it. And yeah, so that's basically kind of what I do, and that's just help like basically massage things even more, so to make sure that everyone's kind of voice is not only sounding as good as it possibly can on its own, but actually making sure that it sounds good in context. So maybe James would sound like, if I had to solo him, maybe he sounds like super bassy or something, like or maybe he sounds too thin or something. But you have to realize that you can't necessarily gauge how that's supposed to work on its own. You have to hear it in context, especially with Evan. You know, maybe Evan's the meat of it, and James is just kind of adding on to what Evan's already laying down. Nice seventh. So you have stuff like that. Yeah, very cool. So what else do we got kind of going on? After that, I think I have a few more maybe extra EQs on Simon and JB. They're pretty featured in this song, so I kind of want to give them a little bit of extra, I guess I call these a vibe EQ. They're EQs that are like not so surgical. They kind of add a bit of character. So I just sneak a bit of one of these on. I thought JB sounded a bit thin, so I gave him a little bit of a boost at 300 hertz, which is a kind of a nice mid-range area, low mids. And yeah, that's basically it. As you can see, I don't have any compression on any individual vocal except for Evan, but there's no compression. So, and I don't really use compression too aggressively anyway with any other accent stuff, but I hate when we post videos and stuff like that and people are like, oh, it's too processed. It's too much everything. I'm just like, you don't know what you're talking about. And first of all, no, but second of all, leave me alone. Anyway, that's my moody side of myself coming out. So Evan has a compressor, but it's barely doing anything. Let me find like the loudest part of the song. And a compressor is something then that kind of tames dynamics. That's one way to use it. And so if you don't know what a compressor is and you're completely lost, basically it makes loud things softer, and that effect it actually makes soft things appear louder or seem louder. So just to control, like, so you don't have like a crazy dynamic performance, you can help rein it in a bit. So this red thing is how much it's taking off, which is like 2 dB. Yeah, it's bare. I mean, I really could not have it on. It makes not that much of a difference, but it just helps to like tuck it in a bit smoother. Yeah, and then I have some reverb. That's basically it, to be honest. And some tape emulation as well, like to make it sound like it's going through a 2-inch tape, to kind of give it that more classic, nice saturated sound. And I'll play you what the first reverb sounds like, so you can get a listen to what it turns into. So. Hear the decay on that plate. So that's a nice plate. I use this plugin called Valhalla plate that I just bought, and it's awesome. So the plate is usually the brighter reverb. It lasts a long time, and it's just like, it's nice. You put that on a vocal, and it just eats it up. So I have everyone sent to these reverbs individually, and then I also have a hall reverb, which is a bit darker and a bit more, I don't know. It just sounds different, and I like using a mixture of both a plate and a hall, because a plate is a man-made kind of reverb, where they would actually send sound through like a metal plate, like a sheet, and it had this effect of giving a reverb, so that's what that is. And then the hall is basically imitating, or trying to be like an actual hall, like a concert hall or something. So, which sounds real. So let's check that out. Nice. So both of them together, there's a lot of reverb on this track. I'll actually take them both off and then I'll put them on so you can kind of hear. On. Cool, huh? Yeah, it's just like, it already sounded nice before, but this just adds like such a great feeling of space and depth to it, which is obviously we didn't record in a hall, but we were okay with the fact that this one has a an aggressive amount of long reverb on it. So which is pretty cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This pitch thing here is basically running through a plugin. It's called Microshift, and that what it basically does is it plays with anything that's sent to it, which is everything. I'm sending all the vocals to it. It detunes them a little bit and it delays them, so it changes the pitch and a bit of the timing. And this isn't smothered on anything. This is just a hint of it is kind of, you're hearing just a hint of it. And what it does is basically it kind of, since we don't have any pitch correction on this at all. So that means that although we're really good at singing in tune, we're not perfect. And because there's 5 of us singing and recording at one time, not everyone's going to nail the part 100% every time. So this plugin, basically what it does is it kind of minimizes or glosses over any glaring pitch problems, and just subtly. So like imagine there's a fifth in their interval that wasn't like quite locked, like just about. So sometimes that might stand out a bit too, like, that's not quite right. But this, if I put a bit of this on, it kind of helps to blur a bit of the pitch just so it doesn't poke out as much. Like it's still there, but anyway, so that's a cool little trick, and it's not really being used too much here, but it's there just in case. Yeah, I have the only real compressor I have is a bus compressor that's happening on the mix. So everything's sending, all the reverbs and vocals are sending to what's called my mix bus, which is where I put on plugins and stuff like that affect everything together. Some cool stuff here. And nothing's being too aggressive, and this is basically as soon as the song gets really loud, it takes off like 1 or 2 decibels. That's it. And it's other than that, as you can see kind of the waveform, which I'll go down here. This is what the mix looks like when it's printed. This is the stereo file that what I'm listening to turns into. As you can see, it has so many like ups and downs, ebbs and flows. This is verbal diarrhea. This is the dynamics. And a lot of songs you'll maybe see, if you were to analyze them this way, they basically look basically like this. I'm exaggerating, but they're like just like basically like a sausage. They just have no moments of like quietness, and everything's just loud all the time and punchy. It's just like no. So this is like super dynamic. So after I'm done with the mix, we'll get it mastered, and he'll be able to find a way to preserve these dynamics, but also making it as loud as it should be compared to other records. Speaking of other records, when I'm mixing, I usually like to go by a reference. I try and find something that I think is a similar style or a great sounding production that I would like to be like. I would love for us to have a sound that's reminiscent of this. And for this song, I really love the Finnish vocal group called Rioton. They're one of my favorites. And their production on their records is just so good. It's the perfect mixture of being just so balanced and just pure and just warm sounding, but it's also, they have really good production on it in a way of, they have really great delays, and they have stuff that's clearly not supposed to, like, that's not real, but it's just so tastefully done. So I've actually modeled quite a lot of our recordings off of some of theirs, just as like I just think they nailed it. So here's like one song that I like to listen to. It's just great. You just hear the clarity, you hear the space, and it's just so well done. So, and then here's ours in comparison. Yeah, that's just, it's cool. So I hope they see this at some point and, know how much I love them, Rioton. And the only thing different really is that I mix our bass a bit more. I like to make Evan good and loud. And another thing is sometimes I'll compare to old mixes that I've done. So in this case, I think it's hilarious to bring up Song for Jean, because that was recorded almost 2 years ago, and it's another ballad, but it's just so different in comparison now because it's also single tracked, but it's just, yeah, I'll play a little bit for you. You can kind of let me know what you think.
You're still here as the music plays. There's no tomorrow but today's. Ooh. No tomorrow but today. The skyline.
It's just the difference. Like, obviously, the acoustic difference is so obvious, but just the performance too. Like, Interlude sounds like it really was a captured performance, because it was. Whereas Song for Jean, although it's a beautiful arrangement and we sang it very well, it doesn't quite reach that next level of expression. And I don't. Maybe it's probably not as. It doesn't have quite the same emotional pull that might interest a listener, because we weren't able to recreate that same feeling and that same sound, the push and pull, the dynamics, the ebb and flow, all those things, which I think we're very good at being able to replicate, but it's not quite the same unless you're together. So yeah, that's kind of it. So that's basically where this song is sitting right now, and I look forward to working on the other ones. This is the first one I've been kind of gotten up to this shape, so it's not the final mix, but it's it's getting there. So thank you again for all your support. We at Accent are so appreciative of everything that you've done for us, and I hope that you'll continue to share our journey and kind of see where the world takes us and what kind of opportunities come our way. And without you, we wouldn't be doing this project right now, and a lot of the other stuff, it would be just so much harder. So thank you, and feel free to let us know if this kind of video would be interesting to you, if you'd like to see more of kind of the inside behind the scenes stuff, and because we're happy to kind of keep you in the loop, as you're very special to us. So thanks again. Signing off. It's my bedtime. Good night.